I am 87 years old, and I have one regret that will follow me into the grave. Her name was Margaret. She was my wife for 51 years, and I spent 48 of those years lying to myself about what love actually was. She died on a Tuesday morning, October 14th. The hospital room smelled like antiseptic and old flowers, the cheap kind our son had brought from the gas station downstairs because he didn't have time to stop anywhere better. I remember thinking that was strange, that a woman who had given us everything was being sent off with gas station flowers. I was holding her hand when it happened. Her fingers were so thin by then, paper thin. I could feel every bone. She had been a strong woman once, strong enough to raise 3 children mostly alone, strong enough to build a home while I built a career. But cancer takes the strong ones first. I've seen it happen. She looked at me near the end. Her eyes were still clear dot, and she said something I did not understand at the time. She said, "Henry, did you water the roses?" That was it. That was the last thing my wife ever said to me. Not "I love you," not "goodbye," not anything a husband might hope to hear after half a century together. She asked about the roses. I told her yes. I lied. I had not watered them in weeks. I did not even know we still had roses. She closed her eyes and smiled a little, and then she was gone. Just like that. 51 years ended in a question about a garden I had never once paid attention to. I thought losing her was the worst pain I would ever feel. I was wrong. The worst pain came 3 weeks later when I found the letter. My son came by the house a week after the funeral. He stood in the kitchen with his hands in his pockets and told me it was time to start going through her things. I wanted to hit him, my own boy. I wanted to tell him that her things were her, that her sweaters still smelled like her, that her reading glasses were still on the nightstand exactly where she had left them, that the indent of her head was still pressed into her pillow, and I had not touched it for 22 days. But I didn't hit him. I nodded, because that is what men of my generation do. We nod, we swallow, we get on with it. So the next morning I walked into our bedroom alone, and I opened her dresser. I started with the bottom drawer, sweaters mostly, a few scarves, things she had knitted herself during the long winters when I was on the road. And underneath all of it, pressed flat against the wood of the drawer, was an envelope. It had my name on it, Henry, in her handwriting. The paper was yellow. The edges were soft the way paper gets when it has been sitting for a very long time. I turned it over, and I saw the date she had written on the back. March 1978, 47 years ago. I sat down on the edge of our bed, her bed, and I opened it with hands that were shaking, for reasons I did not yet understand. 3 pages, written in the careful handwriting of a woman who had once taught 2nd grade before we had children. Every word is placed exactly, no crossings out. She had thought about this letter for a long time before she wrote it. The first line is what destroyed me. Henry, I don't think you see me anymore. October 1981. Margaret's mother was dying. We had known for weeks. The doctors had given her days, not weeks, and Margaret had been driving the 2 hours to Cleveland every weekend to sit with her. She was exhausted. She had lost weight. She had stopped wearing the lipstick she used to put on even for trips to the grocery store. On a Thursday night, my boss called. There was a client in Chicago, a big one. If I flew out Friday morning and closed the deal over the weekend, the partnership was mine. 20 years of work, right there, one trip. I told Margaret at dinner. She put her fork down. She did not cry. She did not raise her voice. She just looked at me across the table and said, "Henry, please, not this weekend. I think she's going to go this weekend. I need you here." I remember what I said to her. I remember it word for word, because I have replayed it 10,000 times since she died. I said, "Honey, she has your brothers, you have your sisters. I have to do this for us, for the family, you understand." She did not understand, but she nodded, because that is what women of her generation did. They nodded, they swallowed, they got on with it. I flew to Chicago Friday morning. I closed the deal Saturday night. I became a partner on Monday. Margaret's mother died on Sunday. Margaret was alone in the hospital room when it happened. She drove herself home in the dark. She slept in our bed by herself while I was in a hotel 800 miles away, celebrating with strangers. When I came home Tuesday, she kissed me on the cheek and asked if I was hungry. She never mentioned that weekend again. Not once. Not in 44 years. But something in her eyes had changed. I saw it. I knew I saw it. And I told myself I would make it up to her later. Later never came. 3 weeks after her funeral, my daughter came to see me, and she told me something I will carry to my Sarah came on a Sunday afternoon. She brought a casserole she had not cooked herself, and sat down across from me at the kitchen table, the same table where I had told Margaret about Chicago 44 years earlier. She did not eat. She did not take off her coat. She just looked at me for a long time, and then she said, "Dad, I need to say something to you, and I need you to listen without interrupting me." I thought she had come to comfort me. I was wrong. "Mom loved you," she said. "She loved you until the last breath she took. But she was lonely, Dad. She was lonely for 50 years. And I watched it. I watched her eat dinner alone 1,000 times. I watched her sit on the porch waiting for headlights that never came until after I was already in bed. I watched her cry in the kitchen when she thought nobody was home. I tried to speak. She held up her hand. "You gave us money, Dad. You gave us a big house and good schools and a car when I turned 16, but Mom didn't want any of that. Mom wanted you, and we wanted you, and you were never there." I said the only thing I could think of. I said, "I work for this family. Everything I did for you." She looked at me the way her mother used to look at me near the end, with a softness that was almost worse than anger. "Dad," she said, "that's the lie you told yourself so you didn't have to come home." She left an hour later. The casserole sat on the counter untouched for 3 days before I threw it out. That night I could not sleep. I walked through the dark house, and I opened Margaret's closet for the first time since she had died, and what I found on the top shelf behind her winter coat in a shoebox is the reason I am sitting here talking to you tonight. The shoebox was light. I thought it would be heavy, but it was light. I carried it to the kitchen table and sat down under the yellow light and opened it. Inside were the things my wife had saved from 51 years of marriage. There were 7 birthday cards. I had given her 51. She had kept the 7 I had written something personal inside. The rest I had just signed. There was a pressed flower from our honeymoon in 1973. I did not remember giving it to her. There was a napkin from a diner in Pittsburgh with my handwriting on it, a heart and the words "back by Friday." I did not remember the diner. I did not remember the note. I did not remember Pittsburgh. There was a photograph of the 2 of us at a lake. She was laughing. I was looking at my watch. There was a small piece of blue fabric. It took me a long time to understand what it was. It was a piece of the tie I had worn on our wedding day. She had cut a square from it sometime in the last 50 years, and kept it in this box, and at the bottom, folded carefully, was a list in her handwriting. It was titled, "Things Henry Said That Made Me Happy." There were 11 items on the list. 11 in 51 years. I am telling you this tonight because I am 87 years old, and I have nothing left to give the world except a warning. If there is someone at home who loves you, put this down. Go to them. Ask them about their day. Ask a second question. Listen to the answer. Money comes back. Jobs come back. Houses come back. The woman who waits for you only waits once, and one day she stops waiting.